I had a great mentor there, a guy by the name of Phil Jones, and he gave me a piece of advice. I was 23 years old, and he was my boss and mentor, and I was working for him, and he said, Tom, if you want to be in real estate, remember this. It's your career. You've got to own it, and you don't have any guarantees you can stay in real estate here. So if you really want to, I'm going to try hard to get you placed in here permanently, but find out what else is out there in the world so that you have optionality. And thankfully for Phil, I found something different. And he was right away, he was like, that's an incredible opportunity.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Inner Compass podcast. I'm Andy Petranek, and I'm really excited this morning to have a guest who I was just talking to prior to getting started. I don't really know at all, other than what I read on his bio. And so I love that because it's an open book. But before I introduce him, I'm going to read his bio. And just to give you guys an idea of who this is in the world, and give me a better idea too. So here we go. My guest today is Tom Sherlock. He has spent most of his adult life helping people make hard decisions in uncertain moments. For more than 40 years, he's worked in commercial real estate finance through multiple market cycles, shifting economic climates, and high-stake environments where clarity, judgment, and trust matter more than headlines. Today, Tom is the co-founder of Talonvest Capital, where he works closely with property owners to think through complex financing decisions, especially when the path forward isn't obvious. What sets Tom apart isn't just his experience, but his perspective that comes from having seen the business from every side, lender, investor, and advisor, and from staying in the work long enough to understand what actually matters over time. He's helped guide billions of dollars in transactions, but more importantly, he spent decades learning how people think, react, and decide when the pressure is on. Outside of his advisory work, Tom teaches in UC Irvine's MBA program, mentors future leaders, and serves in nonprofit and industry leadership roles. At this stage of his life and career, he's less interested in chasing outcomes and more interested in sound judgment, long-term thinking, and doing the work with integrity.
Well, I want to meet this guy. Who is he?
Exactly. God, I hope everybody's thinking that after hearing that bio. Tom, welcome to the podcast. Here he is.
Thank you, Andy. It's nice to be here.
My first question really, and this is just because who the heck is this guy? How did this get started? How did the ball get rolling? How did you get 40 years ago before you had any experience at all? How did this begin?
Yeah. 40 years ago when I graduated from the University of Illinois, the only thing I knew regarding my career was that I wanted to work around money and investments. And being a 22-year-old college graduate in 1985, what do I think? Whoever offers me the most money, that's the job I'm going to take. Nothing else matters. What was your major in college? I was a finance major at Irvine. Yeah.
Okay, so you knew going into college that this was the path.
That was the path. This is what I like. I like investments. I like the capital world. What I didn't know was that I loved real estate. And so the first job I got was one of those positions where they recruited a half a dozen schools: Northwestern, Michigan, University of Chicago, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin. It was a Chicago-based firm, focused on these schools, MBA and undergrads, and then said, whoever they hired, there were 5 of us every year they would hire. We worked hard. We put in those 70-hour week kind of iBank mentality. But we moved around the institution wherever they needed us. And I got exposed to real estate in one of my rotations. And that's when, the light bulb went off and I was like, I love this. This is what I want to do. And the only way I could stay doing it was actually, I had to leave that organization. I had a great mentor there, a guy by the name of Phil Jones, and he gave me a piece of advice. I was 23 years old, and he was my boss and mentor, and I was working for him. And he said, Tom, if you want to be in real estate, remember this. It's your career. You've got to own it. And you don't have any guarantees you can stay in real estate here. So if you really want to, I'm going to try hard to get you placed in here permanently, but find out what else is out there in the world so that you have optionality. And thankfully for Phil, I found something different, and he was right away. He was like, "That's an incredible opportunity. You got to take it." And of course, I looked at him. I'm like, "Were you really trying to get rid of me that quickly?" It's like, "Here's an opportunity. Oh, this is awesome. Take it." But yeah, that's how I found real estate, and that's kind of where the passion started to grow.
Did you stay in that sector? Have you stayed in that sector since that day? Like since that change?
I only stayed in the real estate global sector. That change, I actually went and moved to Citibank. So I spent the next 4 or so years, 4+ years at Citibank, and the world was different in the late 1980s. It was before the savings and loan crisis was about to happen.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of institutions that were failing in the late 80s, and they changed banking laws to allow national banks, and Citibank was coming in to buy a failed institution in the Midwest. And that was a creation of Citibank, Illinois. And Citibank was, I'll say they were smart enough at that time. They knew that if they took a lot of New York people and dropped them into Chicago, that was going to be a cultural disaster. So they made the decision they were going to recruit and hire what they thought were the best and brightest in Chicago, and kind of build the organization from a grassroots standpoint that way. And I wasn't one of the best or brightest. I was one of the luckiest, but I was in kind of at a ground level. And I spent the next 4 years and had a lot of successes. Phil was right. It was a rocket fuel opportunity for my career, and I did have a lot of successes. And I sort of hit a glass ceiling. I was 28 years old. And my then boss, who ran a group, was going to be moving to North Carolina and retiring. And he was like, "Tom should have my job. He's done A, B, C, D, E, and F." And there were a lot of discussions internally about it, but in the end, nobody else under the age of 35 had that role. And I had to make kind of a hard decision. I liked it there. I'd done really well there. But in my mind, one of the questions I was asking is, okay, so what happens? Do I have to wait 7 years before I can have that next step? And am I willing to do that? And the answer ultimately was I wasn't willing to do that. So I ended up leaving the banking industry and went to the advisory side of the business and went to work for one of my clients. So it worked out really well. It wasn't an easy decision at the time. I remember my mother, scratching her head like, I thought you were a reasonably intelligent young man, and you're leaving a big company where you're having a lot of success to take a job with no salary. So.
Yeah, that's definitely something I can see a parent would not understand very well. Like I'm in the role of parent now. My son's in college, and yeah, it's like I got my ideas about what he should do. And exactly. they don't necessarily coincide with his ideas of what he should do.
Exactly. And my parents were Depression era babies. So their whole world and experience was different from mine. And it's the same way. I'd like you. I have children, and they're grown pretty much now. They're in their 20s, and
they're never grown, Tom. Come on. They're still kids.
and in their minds, I grew up in a different world, and it was a different time. And they question, whether I have any knowledge to us. It's an endless cycle. My parents wondered if I had any brains, and my kids wonder if I have any brains. But
yeah, I think that just continues to go. They'll experience the same thing you are when they're, our age.
Exactly.
What and then so did you stay in Chicago then, or did you make it out to LA at that point?
I was still in Chicago at that point when I made that change and went to work for one of my clients and went to the advisory side of the business. It really was about, hey, I understand the seat at the table that I've been sitting at for the last number of years. I want to be on the other side of the table. I want to be with the owners. I want to represent their interests. And I spent the next 7 years doing that in Chicago. But I met my wife during that time frame, and my wife was born and raised out here in Southern California. So a couple of years after we got married, she sprung. It was the best sales job ever, Andy. It was unbelievable. She didn't tell me that she wanted to move back home, but we came out here on 4th of July weekend. we were visiting her best friend who lived in Manhattan Beach at the time. And if you know Manhattan Beach in the 4th of July, it's, blue skies, sunshine, and there's just massive parties out on the beach. And it's a little bit of heaven for, a 20 or 30 something. And as we're walking down the Strand, my wife says, I don't know if I have any more Midwestern winters in me. And I looked at her and I was like, what? I really missed home. And yeah, so I kind of looked out at the beach and thought, this is a place I'll move. So,
this doesn't suck.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how I ended up in Southern California. God, that was probably, 28 years ago or something like that. Now it's been a while. So
were your kids born at that time, or did they come after?
No, they were all born and raised here in Southern California. So they only have Chicago roots through dad. They don't have the experience of that Midwestern upbringing.
I'm sure you've taken them back there to Chicago.
Oh yeah. But,
are they Cubs fans or White Sox fans?
They
neither. Or
they've been to a Cubs game. They're more football fans than they are baseball.
Bears. Did you see that Bears game? Holy cow.
Oh my God. So I was having flashbacks to the 1980s when the Bears used to be good, and then it was the desert for a long time.
I'm a big Redskins fan, so 85 when the Bears, that was not my happiest day.
right after that, you got plenty of Super Bowls.
Yeah, we did. But that one I remember. But man, we shut the game off. I thought there's no way the Bears are coming back. Like we started watching a movie, and then I looked at ESPN. I'm like, oh my God, the Bears won.
Yeah, what happened? My nephews and my brothers and my brother-in-law are all huge Bears fans, and they had warned me throughout the season. They're like, you can't turn off a Bears game. You're watching a game, you got to watch the whole game because it's unbelievable what happens. And I was kind of like,
yeah, right.
Wow.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Amazing. So okay. So then take us through like from then till now. I know that's a long time. It's a 28-year stretch, but what occurred then in Southern California and how'd you get here?
Yeah. There's only, it's a 28-year stretch, but there's really only two parts to the story, which is nice compared to a lot of movement early in my career. I spent most of maybe that first 12 years with a group of guys and ultimately started a company called Buchanan Street Partners, which was a brokerage firm with an investment management platform. And that was an incredibly entrepreneurial organization. It was an exciting time. I mean, we were growing something from the ground up. Robert Brunswick, who was the chairman of the firm today, but was the president and CEO back then, and sort of was the driving force behind everything, was somebody I learned a ton from. He was one of my mentors, and I date myself when I say this. I used to say, if you look in a dictionary, there was a picture of Robert under the definition of entrepreneur. And now I have people look and go, well, what's a dictionary? What do you mean look at a dictionary?
That's right.
Yeah.
But I didn't know you were going to say that. Like that's very ubiquitous with my history too. Like, of course it's a dictionary. What else would you look at?
Exactly. So I spent 12 years there, and that was incredible because that was the brokerage business. That was the advisory business. That was where I got into more management and leadership responsibilities, was inside that organization. It also, there we managed a lot of institutional money to do joint venture equity investing. They do different things now at Buchanan Street, but back then that's what the focus was. And we probably invested somewhere around $1.5 billion of equity into about $5 billion in real estate in JV. So I got a lot of that. What's it like to be on the broker side in that seat, along with, well, what's it like to be on the principal side? And the difference of, as a broker, you close a deal and great, you're done, everything's success, hooray. And when you're on the principal side, it's like, congratulations, the game just started.
The work just began. Yeah.
So that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. But in 2010, for me, I kind of made it a decision. It was time for me to move on. It was time for me to do, I'll say, my own thing. And that's how Talinvest came into being. When I left in early 2010, gentleman by the name of Eric Snyder, who's my business partner here. He and I founded the firm, and in some ways, it was going back to the roots of Buchanan Street, our Buchanan Street experience. It was, we really want to be the best advisor and that we can be for the owner operators in the space, and we did not want to have any potential conflicts of interest, whether they were subliminal types of potential conflicts or obviously not blatant ones, but we really wanted a very, very clean structure so that we could represent the best interests of our clients. And for the last 16 years, we've been growing Talinvest, and boy, there's a lot of things, cycles that have happened. I mean, we founded the company in the great financial crisis. Many people looked at me. At that time, I'd been the president of NAIOP, an industry trade organization in the Southern California chapter I was the president of. And a year later is when I founded Talonvest, and a whole bunch of folks from the organization were looking at me like, "You're doing what?" It's just like my mother had come back through into them, and "You're doing what?"
Yeah, right.
So, but we started the company in the great financial crisis, and you learn a lot of lessons.
Yeah, right. Well, that's a good segue into the next set of questions. And I have some ideas of questions, but I really kind of make them up on the spot as we go.
Sure.
The first question was, where has your strength laid, in your experience? Have you been the rainmaker? Are you the kind of the head and kind of advisor for people? Like what role do you has been the I don't know, the greatest for you? Yeah.
I played a lot of roles, in different organizations, and I've had to play a lot of roles inside Talinvest, and I was one of the lead rainmakers inside the firm. But I'll tell you, one of the greatest lessons maybe I learned as an entrepreneur, as the leader of a company, is how critically important it is to team build. Tim O'Brien, who we both know, I remember TOB in the early 2000s, when I first started. I mentioned I was first getting into leadership and some management responsibilities. And I remember Tim having a conversation with me, and he said, he's a basketball guy, I'm a basketball guy. And he said, "Sherlock, here's the thing." He said, "You spent most of your career and on a basketball court, and the plays would get drawn up for you. You were the guy that was going to take that last shot." He said, "Now you're in an entirely different role. Now you're that guy on the sidelines who's drawing up the play, and you don't get to take the shot anymore. Somebody else has to." And it was a great analogy. I could really easily understand it. Who couldn't, right? But wow, you talk about a fundamental shift that's really hard to adapt into. When you're the guy used to taking a shot, you're used to being kind of a rainmaker, and all of a sudden you're saying, "I got to build a team. I got to." So that leadership and management responsibility, and the trust that has to be placed in other people, and ironically, at the same time, the trust you have to have in yourself to say, "Hey, these are the right people. They're capable. They can do this. You don't have to step in. Let them take the shot." And Michael Jordan said it. I missed a heck of a lot of them, but I made a lot of them too. So
right. What were some of the stories that come to mind of lessons you've learned, or things you've learned from either mistakes you've made, or missteps, or misdirections, or trusting people when you feel like you shouldn't have, or vice versa?
Boy, lessons learned. I make plenty of mistakes, so I learn lots and lots of lessons. But some of the reasons I make plenty of mistakes is because I do lots of things, and I'm willing to try and experiment on things. Some of the things that worked out have a flip side of the coin. We've grown the company. We have 17 people inside the organization today. We anticipate growing further. We have a COO inside the organization. We have a business developer inside the organization, and we have a head of our underwriting team inside the organization. These are all folks who've been with the organization for a while, anywhere from probably on the shortest end 5 years, and on the longest end maybe 12 or 14 years. And some of the maybe best things that I did or I was able to do was I was able to see talent and skills that they had that sometimes they didn't recognize inside themselves, or maybe they recognized them that they didn't have enough faith in themselves that they could actually elevate and execute as a leader, execute as a manager, two different things. But in some cases they were able to do all those things, and helping them see what they were really capable of. That's probably one of the things I'm most proud of, because we have some incredibly talented people inside the organization, and they're not talented because of me. They're talented because of what they are capable of doing and what they're willing to do. But sometimes they just needed a little extra belief or a little extra push. And that's something I'm really proud of. The flip side of that coin, though, is there are times that made hires and I would see technical skills and that ability to really execute on the job, but the cultural fit was off. And great lesson learned. You could teach skills, you can't teach culture. Somebody needs to they need to fit in who we are and how we are. Yeah. And I've made mistakes and trusted too much on the technical side. Oh yeah. Don't worry about the cultural side. They're going to be great. And I've made mistakes on that front. And hopefully I learn those lessons and I don't repeat them. I hope I don't, but we'll see.
Well, that's an interesting, it makes me think of the Simon Sinek did a talk about the Navy SEALs and how they choose their players, their players for teams, and that trust that is required. And a big part of trust is not just technical skills, but it's the way they mesh, the way they connect, culturally. And if someone's not a guy that you would trust your life to, or trust your wife with, or then it's the wrong fit.
Yeah. Well, we talk a lot inside Talinvest. We talk a lot, and I talk a lot about the right people inside our organization. I'll go back to the football analogy. You were talking about the Redskins back in the 80s and John Riggins and the Hogs and winning Super Bowls, and the 85 Bears winning Super Bowls. Tom Brady, as a podcast and newsletter, actually he does, called Number 199, because he was the 199th pick. And he talks about his life and all the lessons he's learned. Well, he had one recently, and the title was "Do Your Job," which is such a blunt, sort of harsh statement. But in the end, we look inside our organization and say, we want to win the Super Bowl. I'm not interested in anybody who is more focused on becoming the MVP of the league, or is more interested in being an all-pro at their position. I want people who say, I want to win the Super Bowl. Everything else is secondary. Yeah. Sure, once we win the Super Bowl, I hope I was recognized as an all-pro. I hope I win the MVP trophy. But first and foremost, we're going to win the damn Super Bowl. And that kind of team mentality is a difference maker. And it's not an easy thing in the brokerage industry, because it's such a eat what you kill kind of industry, eat what you kill mentality. And so it's really hard to find people. That's been the biggest challenge of growing this company, finding the right people who have that mentality that says, first, let's win as a team. Right. Then my ego can be satisfied after.
It sounds like the players on your team would not have their names on the back of the jerseys.
Yeah, that it's a great example. It's a little bit of D. Brown back, who started at University of Illinois in the basketball team, where he's grabbing his jersey and pulling it out, and it was Illinois. He wasn't pulling it back saying D. Brown. It was right. It was my team. So.
Yeah, I always say the time of the lone wolf is over. The lone wolf, if you know anything about wolves and wolf packs, they don't survive on their own. The only way a wolf pack survives is because of their ability as a team to, hunt and kill things that will feed the whole pack.
Yeah.
And I think we live in a world that is starved of that sort of connection. There's such a armoring up of people, and there's a scarcity mindset, and I've got to prove my, my worth and my value myself.
Yeah. Well, you used the scarcity mindset. That's a phrase my partner Eric Snyder uses often. You got a choice. You can have a scarcity mindset, or you can have an abundance mindset.
Yeah.
Make your choice, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I in my work, I talk about choice a lot. But one of the things that I have, over the years of doing this, have seen is that most people think they live in a world where you're free to choose, right? I mean, we live in the United States, so you have freedom, but we all have these mental constructs from the time that we're very young that tell us something about us where I'm not, and usually they're negative. Like, I'm not safe, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, I don't belong. Yeah. And they're running. We don't see that they're running, but they're running everything. And when you look at the choices you've made, like I can look at my life and look at the choices I've made in my life and think, wow, those were incredible choices. And wow, you did this and did that and accomplished all these things. I didn't really have a choice. I mean, because of the mechanism, the machinery that's running in the background, these are what's been doing it now. But now that I'm aware of it, now I have a choice. Yeah. That's really a big shift that can happen for people, is shifting into and it's what the great sages talk about is know thyself, or that's Shakespeare, I think. It's the difference between power and force. Yes. You find that power within. And I think that's kind of what it's what you're up to in your team mentality.
In a lot of ways. And it's an interesting topic that you bring up, kind of those, I'll call it the baggage that you carry from your upbringing, both positive and negative. That baggage, obviously having that wrong connotation of only negative, but the stuff you have from growing up. And it's interesting because I think about some of the choices that I've made, some of the things that I do, even today. You mentioned I teach at UCI in the MBA program. I love doing it. It's a lot of fun. A long time ago, I helped found a young professionals group, a program that's been around 20-some years for NAOP. That's a leadership and development program. And I spent an enormous amount of time and effort helping to get that off the ground. And it's been a wonderful success. There's 700 people who graduated from that program over the last 2 decades. But going back to, okay, why'd you do it? What was behind it? And in a lot of ways, what's behind it is my family, my upbringing is kind of like, no. It's not all about you, Right. My mother, God bless her, and God rest her soul, but my mother was funny because if any of the kids in the family had some success, and she'd be very proud of us. But the minute you thought you were something special because you had success, she would bring us right back into, in essence, it's about the team. And so why do I teach? My wife will be like, good God, you're so busy, maybe you should take a break. Or people inside the company, man, Tuesday mornings, it's Tired Tom Tuesday because you've been teaching on Monday night. Why do I keep doing this? And I keep doing it because I really enjoy it and it's a lot of fun. But behind that is sort of this, I have a responsibility, I have an obligation, and that comes from my upbringing. I don't think.
Well, it's funny the way you relate to it is that you have a responsibility or and yes, I would agree it's from your upbringing, but I would argue that, and not argue, but I would just present a possibility that system is running you, perhaps, as opposed to you running it. And
you won't get an argument from me.
Well, if it's Tired Tom Tuesday, wait, is it Tuesday? It is Tuesday. You're here, and you don't seem that tired. So I don't know. Your
class hasn't started yet. It's coming in March.
Okay, got it. So I caught you at a good time.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's one of the big things that people start to wake up to in this work is especially when they get in times of transitions. And so this next area that I wanted to talk about is transitions, is making those choices to, whether it's been moving or whether it's starting an organization or it's working for yourself or changing your role at work or going to a school where the fun goes to die, or, right. Like what's been behind some of those? Like look, we've already been talking about it. Is it always been an overriding thought of, let's build a team, let's build a group? Have you always been a team person?
Yeah. 100%. I've always been a team guy. Growing up, the sports I played, they were all team sports. I played basketball, I played football, I played baseball. Everything was a team sport. Not that there's anything wrong with individual sports. They're all fine. Yeah, right. For me, they're just very, very different. They're not attractive to me. It's the camaraderie. It's the relationship building. It's the trust you have to have in other people and they have to have in you. Mm-hmm. A lot of these things I think I've been this way a long time, to kind of how you said it, Andy. I heard something, this was probably 25 years ago. We had somebody who did some work with us in the Buchanan Street days, and he was with the leadership team. I'll tell you a quick story. I hope I don't bore you with this one, but he had done a bunch of sort of profiling on each of us, and we were having a group meeting. We were all going to learn more about each other. And Jim was this gentleman's name who had done the testing, and he has a stack of papers this high, and it's kind of reports on each one of us. And mine is apparently the top one, and there's maybe 12 of us in the room, and he takes me off, and he goes, Sherlock, and he goes, oh, we're going to wait on this one. And I'm like, uh-oh, what's this mean? He kind of puts it in the middle, but we go through a bunch of people, and then he gets back to mine. And he gave a scenario, and he said, he said, look, this is going to be a harsh scenario. It's not a pretty scenario, but if any of you in this room, if you are married or if you're single, pretend you're married, if you are having an affair, would you go to Sherlock and talk to him? And you had to talk to somebody in the group about it. Would you go and talk to Sherlock? Mm-hmm. And 11 people in the room are like, they're just going like this. And he said, why? To the other 11 people. And I'm sitting there going, wow, I can't wait to hear. This is interesting. Yeah. Why? And finally somebody said, look, he's a pretty black and white guy. And this is going to be on the wrong side of things. I'm not going to talk to him about this. And somebody else more or less agreed and said the same thing. And Jim looked at the room and he said, hey, none of you understand him. You're absolutely right. He's a black and white guy. But it's not for you. It's only for him. The rules he makes that you see, he applies them only to himself. He doesn't apply them to you. He's not judging you. He's actually the guy you could go and talk to. You wouldn't see him cross a line that he's drawn in the sand for himself, but he's not going to give you a hard time about what you do or why you do it. He's probably a guy you can talk to. It was an interesting insight, because as he said it, I was kind of like, the realization I had was, yeah, I have all these rules. I knew about that. And then I started to go, wait a minute, they really are only for me. So doing some of the things that I've done and been involved in, whether it's teaching, whether it's the philanthropy things we do at Talinvest, whether it's YPG, starting the company, those come from within, and they're for me. And he described it as that's how I create order out of the chaos all around me, as my attempt at trying to control the chaos and have some level of order to try and keep me sane. I don't think the sane part worked out, but I hope that the little bit of order that I can control is happening. So,
have you ever had a moment where a couple pictures where either everything looked great outside, but inside something's off, or could be also happening at the same time, where you were having a success, but it wasn't, you're concerned that it wouldn't deliver, or it didn't deliver what you thought it would, like a big upheaval.
Yes, sure. Multiple times. in imposter syndrome starts to,
Hmm.
funnel into the brain. It's like, hey, wait, outside looking at, hey, look at all these great things that are happening. Inside, you're going, something's off. Team's not feeling right. Things aren't running smoothly. There's too much friction going on, and then it's like, I often look at myself to say, what can I do differently? But there's times the negative part of the imposter syndrome creeping in saying, yeah, well, of course, this is what's going to happen because you're really not capable
Right.
of,
Right.
of leading this or building this, or it's got to a point, that's past your capabilities. So yeah, unfortunately, uh, I've experienced it multiple times, and it's an uncomfortable thing,
Yeah.
certainly to experience. Um, Usually, uh, I'm a big reader, so I try to understand things as best I can, and that probably beyond my understanding, but I'll take things that I read and start to apply and remember.
Huh.
Adam Grant wrote a great book, Think Again, and it
Yeah.
talks
That's a
about,
great book.
you
Yeah.
know, um, preaching and prosecuting and politicking and forget all that stuff. Just be a scientist and look for the truth, look for the
Hmm.
answer. And I remember that from this book, some of those times when I start feeling that imposter syndrome, that Wayne's World, I'm not worthy,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
thing, and start to say, drop it, drop that and be the scientist and start to look and say, what's really going on?
Hmm.
And more often than not, it's not about me. It's or whether I'm worthy or I'm an imposter syndrome or not. It's starting to say, okay, what's happening? Let's figure that out. Address the issue.
Hmm.
You know, uh,
Right.
so.
Have there been bigger bumps on the work side or on the personal side? And is there any story you can share about anything specific?
Um, I think there's been bumps certainly on both sides. As a human, it's sort of inevitable.
Yeah.
I think the bumps that I'm probably most um, recent was about a year ago inside the organization. We structured our company differently than other brokerage firms, and I always disliked the silo mentality. And the big organizations who will say, hey, we're one team, they're set up and they're just individual silos inside a big organization and they sort of compete with each other and yada, yada, yada. And when Eric and I started Talinvest, um, I had in my mind there were a couple of things that were sort of non-negotiables. And one of them was we were going to structure with business development, business execution, and separate those two things so we could get real expertise. And we were on the business execution side, we'd bring the power of the entire firm for every one of our clients, not inside the little silo, but the whole power. And
Mhm.
we would pay everybody on that side of the business bonuses on every deal that closed. Learned a lesson a long time ago. If you want something with employees, you pay for it.
Yeah.
So that's how we structured ourselves, and it worked out well. That's all backstory into about a year ago. There's a natural friction that can happen between business development and business execution. That it's just the nature of the jobs that there's a little friction that exists.
Mhm.
Um, about a year, maybe a little more than a year ago, we started to get into unhealthy friction. We started to get into, use the football analogy. We had offensive linemen telling wide receivers how to run routes and catch passes. We had wide receivers telling quarterbacks how to throw the ball. And we just were starting, instead of the natural tension friction that exists that's healthy, we started getting this.
Mhm.
And that was a failing on my part, because what happened was I let it go on too long.
Mhm.
I wanted to put the blinders on. I didn't want to see it. It was happening, and I just kind of pretended like it wasn't and that it would go away. And of course, what happened? It festered, and it got worse and worse. Um, and we hit a point of no return in a lot of ways inside the organization, where we had to sit down and have the come to Jesus meeting with some folks about what does a healthy environment look like, what does a healthy team look like, what can you be doing differently? We not understand what your issues are, and maybe we can solve them. If we can't solve them, we will. But maybe your issues are, you want this, and this is what our company is. They're not congruous. And the right answer is, you need to be at a different organization to realize what you want. And if that's the situation, that's okay. But we had to face that. And I do, when I look at it, I go, it got bad because of me, because I was abdicating my responsibility. When we did kind of respect our responsibility and start to take care of things, man, those aren't easy conversations. We did have some people who left, and it was the right thing for them, and it was the right thing for us, but it's still hard. But now fast forward 12, 13, 14 months later, and the friction is the natural friction, the healthy friction.
Yeah.
And now the team, now we've got, I'm going to tease a little bit. Now we've got the all-pro offensive lineman and the all-pro wide receiver, and
awesome.
Knock on wood, we're winning the Super Bowl.
Right.
Still the playoffs.
Has anything, just to kind of follow up on that question, has anything not gone, like not ended well, where you had to like really pivot or do something completely different, where it's been, oh shit, this really knocked me off?
Yeah, I have to go back a little further in time for that. In the late 2000s, during the great financial crisis, and I had management responsibilities, and there were a lot of people who reported to me. And look, the world had turned upside down, and the worst professional experiences I had were at that time, and I had to lay a lot of people off. And it is. These were talented people. These were good people. There wasn't anything where, gosh, this person is a problem child. They're just upsetting the apple cart all the time. They need to go. These were people who were the right people on the bus, so to speak, and they were talented. But the world had changed. It had gotten so dramatically difficult in the real estate world. They had to let people go. And back in 2008, plus or minus 2009, I probably was involved in having to lay off 15, 20 people or something like that. And some of those folks I still do a lot of business with. I learned a lesson a long time ago. How you do things is equally important as to what you do. What I was doing in those situations was horrible. The what was horrible. The how is hopefully the piece that I could control and handle the right way, so that this bad experience was a little less bad. not good English right there, but a little less bad. That was hard, man. That's literally to me, that's the worst part of leadership.
Were you ever afraid of like failure, or considering you had, I'm guessing they weren't maybe super young, but they were definitely kids at home.
Yeah.
And your wife, and like, were you ever concerned? Like, did you ever have anxiety or worry or fear or doubt, or like, oh man, this is.
I love that question. It's a fascinating one. And I don't know if this is going to be an insight to me being insane or not, but I honestly, I never had concerns about my wife and my, then 3 young kids. I never had the concerns when I moved out from Chicago to California. I didn't know anybody in the industry. I had no concerns. Maybe I'm oblivious, and I should be worried about some of these things. Maybe I have enough confidence in myself that I believed with enough time it would be. It would have a good outcome as long as there was enough time, and thankfully I'm blessed to have a wife, Laura, the way she is, that she is so supportive of my career and the things that are important to me, and it's not about the money or the lifestyle or anything like that. That I never felt financial pressures and the need to oh gosh, what happens if? I always thought I would land on my feet. And it goes kind of funny because it goes back to my mother and another story when I moved from Citibank and she thought I was crazy. Fast forward years later, and when I was starting Talinvest, that was, Buchanan was a really successful firm. We had done a lot of great things. We had somebody who bought an interest in the firm. It was just lots and lots of good things. And I remember being back in Chicago visiting my mother and sharing with her, hey, Mom, I'm going to be leaving. I'm going to start a new company. And once again, she's kind of looking at me like, something's really not right with this guy.
Right.
But she said to me then, and it's kind of the belief that I have. She said to me, Tommy, I don't understand a lot of the things you do. They don't really make sense to me, but you always land on your feet. And if you feel comfortable about this and if this is what you want to do, I'm excited for you because I know it's going to work out. Maybe there's a little that's just kind of I don't know why, but that's kind of part of who I am and how I am, that I just believe that we'll get things to work.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what I hear in your story is how you've just trusted your inner guidance, and you've been blessed in that it's always worked. I mean, blessed maybe is the wrong word, or I don't know. Fortunate, because definitely not everybody, even when they believe the way you believe, not everybody, that doesn't always happen.
Well, blessed is a good word, Andy. I'll take that one.
Okay, all right.
I like it. I will say, because I don't want this to come across as not based in reality. Look, there's been plenty of challenges along the way. I mean, there's times where it's like, wow, how are we going to work this one out?
Right.
How are we going to solve this one? There's been times it's been really hard, but it's never. Again, I grew up in a working class family in the inner city of Chicago, so I that's financial pressures. My grandparents growing up, and it's kind of like, where's the next food? How's the food going to get on the table tonight? That's financial pressures. What we live in is a different world, and so I guess some of that history of my grandparents and my parents had, and the depression, and it shaped my way of thinking, that I don't get too wrapped up in it. There's times that it's pretty damn hard, no doubt about it.
Right. So. What about today? What does fulfillment look like to you? What are you pointing your sights at? What's your North Star, and how do you stay on track?
That's a fascinating question. Maybe my North Star. When I think about the things I'm really proud of in my career, obviously Talinvest and the team we built, that's part of it. The Young Professionals Group program that I helped found, and the fact that it's still going, that's something I'm super proud of. Teaching at UCI, it makes a difference. It has an impact. I love that. But the one thing that I haven't talked about that maybe is the thing that I'm most proud of is the philanthropic orientation of Talinvest. When we started the company, I just have a belief that corporations have a responsibility, not an obligation, but a responsibility. And when we started the company, I said there were some non-negotiables. One of the non-negotiables for me in creating the company was that a percentage of our top line, not profits, but a percentage of our top line revenue is going to be allocated to philanthropic organizations. And my partner Eric and my partner Jim Davies, who unfortunately passed away a little over a year ago, they were in full agreement with that. And over the years, Talinvest has donated millions of dollars. We're just a little boutique firm here. We've donated millions of dollars to a variety of charities. And one of the things that I'm super proud of, that's that North Star you're talking about, we have something we call Talonvest Philanthropy Partners. We go to our clients every November And we tell them one of the ways we want to say thank you to you for believing in us and trusting in us and hiring us to represent you in capital markets. We want to make a donation to the 501c3 of your choice. One condition, 501c3. Everything else is you. And what we've heard from a whole bunch of clients over the years is that's one of the coolest things that's been done in the industry. It's so much better than a closing dinner and let's get a seafood tower and let's have some great bottles of wine. And I didn't think about it any other way than as a way to say thank you to them. What I've learned over time, it's been an avenue and a vehicle to start learning so much more about somebody. What are they passionate about? Where are they allocating some of their financial resources towards a charity? And so, for somebody, it might be supporting veterans, and all of a sudden you start finding out some of their backstory as to why that's so important to them. Or for somebody else, it might be, something like the American Cancer Society, a medically oriented, research oriented, and you start finding out some of their story, what's happened in their life to them or their loved ones. And it's been such a fantastic and enlightening process that in a lot of ways, my favorite day of the year is on Veterans Day. It's a national holiday. I come in on Veterans Day every year, and that's when I send out a lot of these. They're singular emails. It's not a big blast with just the first name there, but singular emails to a whole host of folks saying, we'd like to make a donation of X dollars. And I know this is what you supported in the past. And if that's where you want to go, great. If you have something different, it literally is my favorite day of the year. And I'm like, man, that's part of Veterans Day.
Yeah, right.
For me. And so I think the philanthropic efforts of Talinvest are in a lot of ways my North Star today. It's, look, we built a company and success is saying, hey, we built this wonderful organization. That inner compass, that North Star kind of thing, boy, I love that. I got to tell you, I just love that. Through that, I became part of the Orange County Ronald McDonald House Board of Trustees, and it's the most awesome thing. We work with money. We help people generate wealth, and that's great. Don't get me wrong. That's a wonderful thing. My second son is in a medical school application process, and I look at him and I'm like, you want to be a neurosurgeon? You're going to be healing people and helping people. Dad's just here trying to help people make money. At the philanthropic angle that we can bring to that starts to bring real value in the experience for me personly. So
yeah, right.
That's a long-winded story.
No, I love that. That's a great, meaningful story. I think it's beautiful. How, more personally, what, you're starting to enter into a different phase of life. Yeah. What does success look like going forward for you personally? Not with Talinvest or where your money's going, not the outer stuff, but the inner stuff. Where do you want to be? What,
it's funny because I'll have people ask me, hey, who's Tom Sherlock besides work? And I smile a little bit and I say, well, I'm family. My oldest son is in Dallas. My second son, the one who wants to go to medical school, is at Brown University right now. My daughter is a senior at Tulane. So I said, first, I'm family. So if I'm getting on a plane and going somewhere, I'm going to Dallas, I'm going to Providence now, or I'm going to New Orleans, or I'm going back to Chicago to see my brothers and sister and nieces and nephews. Family is so much of who I am, and the ability and the opportunity to spend time with all those folks. That's success in a lot of ways for me right now. It used to be, I was a work 60, 70 hours a week kind of guy. And it was the grind, and it was, what's the company doing? It's not about Talinvest anymore. It's about family. It's about football, because that's one of my passions. And the ultimate success for that is I do want to go. I told my wife this and she just grins and bears it. I told her that my bucket list item is in one season I want to go and see a home football game for every team in the NFL all in one season.
Wow.
So that's a 4 month sabbatical
Yeah, right.
to get to the 32 teams home games. But family football and philanthropy, I can see continuing to do things with the Orange County Ronald McDonald House because what they do. I'm not a real outwardly emotional guy, and every time I'm at a board meeting there, we have what we call mission moments, and there's families who are staying in the house, and literally brings a tear to my eye when they're telling their story and how much the house means to them because they have a child at Chalk or UCI, something like that, and what the house means, and boy, Success Now is doing more and more and more for the Ronald McDonald House. It's an incredible organization, and the story behind it is fascinating. It's interconnected with the NFL, one of my passions. So that's success. It's family. And
do you have trouble keeping those things in balance, or is that
yes.
not how do you do that?
I don't think I keep them in balance. I just like to go and go and go. And that's why my wife is like, you're never going to retire. I may retire from Talinvest someday, probably but not for a while. But she's like, if you sat down and just didn't have activity, I think you would die.
That's interesting.
The wind up toy, just, that's it.
Yeah, right.
It's I don't know. It's hard it's hard, and at the same time, it's not hard. Before I would take on too many things. I still have people who tell me I take on too many things, but I'm trying to get better and better and better. And the part that I've gotten better at goes back inside the company, and it's trusting in the people inside the organization. I'm letting a lot more things go today and say, hey, Carol's got the ball. She's going to do it differently than me, and probably better than me at the same time. Or Eric's got that ball, or Mason's got that ball, or Ivan or Kim or whoever. And it's releasing those things so I can let other things come in. And I have an activity level that I really need to have because I would get bored. but anyway, yeah.
What is if you were having a conversation with someone who is either struggling with something or feels stuck, and is successful and has already been successful? What advice do you give them? What's worked for you, and how would you advise them, given that you're a coach of a lot of teams, or you've been a coach of a lot of teams?
Yeah. I like to ask a lot of questions. And so I'd probably ask a lot of questions of that person if they were stuck, trying to find out, help them, not for myself, but for them, help them understand, where is the stuck coming from? And is it a belief? Is it an action? Something else? But if it's a belief, it starts to be, what other options exist out there? Do you do you believe this because your own self-perception is grounded in this belief? And can you let it go? That's some of the things I guess I had to go through. There were certain things that this is just who I am, and therefore I have to always be this way. And I talked about books. I read a book called Act Like a Leader, Think Like a Leader, and it talked about how actions actually precede thoughts so many times, and actions will shift your mindset. And somebody who's, well, I'm just a pessimist, and when they stop and say, wait a minute, why? Why do I have to be a pessimist? It's sort of, I've made this choice, and they start acting a different way. It starts to shift their mindset. So I'd ask a lot of questions to try and find if there's some avenue where they can have the moment of enlightenment. It's not going to be me teaching or
Right.
telling them what it is. It's them having to see it for themselves, and hopefully I can help them see it. That's when I talked earlier about some people who've grown so much inside the organization. Again, it was all inside them. All I did was help them see the possibilities that they had inside themselves already.
Right.
And so it's just, it's kind of a flip side of that. If they're dealing with a problem or a challenge, it's sort of the same process, but just oriented in a different way.
Yeah. Right. Right. It's also interesting. You can, going back to what you said about actions, you can act your way, not act like actor, but you can take action your way through the inner turmoil that you might be experiencing. You just have to trust that even though you don't feel like it. Like I had a Zen teacher, he's kind of spoiled the word feeling for me, because he would regularly say, I don't give a shit about your feelings. Like, like, I get it. You're scared. Okay. Now take a step. Like, and man, that, you can't say that to everybody.
Yeah.
But when you realize that the only thing getting in your way is your thinking about the way you think, and your thinking is based on your beliefs, and your beliefs are based on your upbringing and your experience in life. Most people very often are operating like looking backwards while, like driving forward, looking in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
And if you don't realize you're doing it, like I said before, you don't have a choice.
Exactly. It's really easy to do when you don't realize you're doing it.
Yeah, right. And you can, and actions can actually shift your way of thinking.
Yeah.
And your beliefs.
I love that you brought up actions versus act like actors, because that really is the heart of that book. Act like a leader, think like a leader. It's the taking actions, not just pretend like you're in this role kind of thing.
Yeah, like be in the role.
Yeah,
be in the role.
Just be in it.
Yeah,
stop doing things and accept the fact that you're going to make a bunch of mistakes.
Yeah, right.
Just make sure they don't cause the world to end.
Well, unless you're in the role of president of the United States, you're a little limited in that.
Right.
Even though at 3:00 in the morning, when you wake up a nervous wreck, you can think that.
Sure. Yeah. Oh my God, the whole company's going to come down, and it's like
lawsuits, and it's going to ruin my family, and I'm going to be homeless, and
Yeah, exactly.
All the way down the flush of the toilet.
So time to go back to sleep.
Yeah. Tom, I really appreciate your time. I really am grateful that you were willing to sit down with me. Is there anything that you would, if you had to sum up your inner compass, your guiding light in your life, what would you say it is if you had to speak it?
That can be a really deep question, and I'm going to give you a really not deep answer, but it actually is going to mean a lot to me. My inner compass: do right by the team. I'm looking over here right now because a bunch of years ago, we created kind of mission statements, personal mission statements inside an organization that I was part of. And I had one that I wrote for myself, and it was a difference maker leading by example. And it's overly simplistic. Do the right thing. That's the lead by example part. Do things the right way so that somebody can look and say, I respect that, and make a difference. And I guess for me, the assumption in there was it's positive.
Yeah, right.
And therein lies so many of the things when I look back in my history of what I've gotten active in and involved in and spent time and effort in. It's all about making a difference. That's sort of my that's my litmus test for myself. Am I making a difference here? And if if not, why am I doing it?
Yeah, I hear that.
And to lead by example, obvious, do the right thing, but that implies there's a team there. That's it for me. So
awesome. Thanks again, Tom. Don't we're gonna stop, but don't hang up.
Thank you for having me on. This has been a joy to have this conversation.
If anybody wanted to find you, how would they find you? Would they go to talonvest.com? Like, how are you findable?
Talonvest.com website to find me. T Sherlock at talonvest.com. Email me. I'm not hard to find.
Okay.
So I appreciate the opportunity to interact with anybody who sees this and might want to hear more.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Thanks, Andy.